Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Fabric Developer, and we've got an interesting topic today. So far we've MJ here as well, as always. So we've our main focus has always been on SQL, Python, Fabric side of things, but our programming language has been a pretty popular one out there as well. So I actually used R a lot in my previous life. So I actually quite like it. I think there's some really good things into it. But over the past few years, I think it's kind of slowly overtaken by Python in
Yeah,
so many different areas. But I'm sure there's still a lot of like data science teams, various other more statistical side of analytics that still happens in R. So MJ will actually do a demo today on
yeah,
using R in Fabric, right?
yeah, awesome. All right,
Cool.
so thanks for that, Dave. And I agree, right? Like R is very popular, uh, and it still is, to be honest, right? Like probably what makes R a bit different from Python is that R has been kind of like industry specific niche, not just niche, but like they're deep on certain industries, right? Well, what that means is that R is used in like a very like a deep concept, let's say in oil and gas, like how do you create some measures or like some analysis on like when you're
Hmm.
digging a well or things like that, right? Like R is has so many deep research around that compared to
Yeah,
Python, which is like Python does a lot of the AI stuff nowadays, right? But R
yeah.
for me is still kind of like in that deep area. Like even in finance, like the really very focused credit scoring and things like that. Like I think
Yeah,
R
I
is
think
still
I think there's a strong at some point there was a very strong academia focus on R. It's similar to MATLAB, right?
yeah.
But yeah, R is like, but it's free in R. And R is also open source like Python. It's actually reasonably popular in the data science world, like broadly speaking, as well. Yeah, yeah. But certainly R is like in certain statistical models for specific industries. There's a lot of research that's happening in that space. So R will probably be
Yeah,
like, yeah.
exactly. So, and that goes into, hey, what is MJ doing in this space, right? So, yeah, like first off, like this is a real world, by the way, real world use case for us. Like again, you talk about academia. So there's this university who is going to use R. It's a joint project with us, with my main work, um, about using R on a data point of kind of literally trying to save lives. I can't talk about the specific thing that
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
trying to solve, but it's a very important real world problem out there, right?
yeah.
That save lives. So that's why I
Cool.
think it's
All right.
very important. So
Yeah.
as part of that, obviously, Fabric, as a Microsoft partner, we are proposing Fabric as a platform of choice, and um, my role my role and engagement is more like a platform enabler for these data scientists and data analysts, right? So one of the main thing that they requested to satisfy if we can use Fabric was RStan. So RStan is kind of like a library. Um, so it's basically an interface of Stan. So Stan is a C++ library for this Bayesian inference. And again, I'm just full disclosure, I'm not an expert in data science in this particular field of what this Hamiltonian Monte Carlo. I've heard about it many times, but this is not my space, right? The Fabric. Actually, before that, do you want to say something about RStan or you know?
No, I haven't used Aston even
Yeah,
when I use Ireland. Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so basically in Fabric, right? So um, key idea here is notebook, right? And in notebook, you wanna choose Spark R. Okay, so when you
Yeah.
choose Spark R, it's just gonna tell Fabric, this particular capacity and Spark instance that hey, I'm gonna use the Spark R runtime. Like I'm gonna use R to write my code on this notebook. All right, so that's why that's very important when you're doing this. Make sure it's set to Spark R. Otherwise, you'll see a lot of syntax error and like, oh, you're writing R, but like you didn't set this to Spark R, so you'll be in a lot of pain. So I already ran this because this might take a bit of time to execute. But the first thing here is that because RStan is already a public repository or public
Library.
package,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, library. So that's why you just have to use this syntax of R, which is like install that packages RStan. Then from library, you just load that, load the RStan library. And then from here, you just want to set up some, options for RStan, like auto write to true and things like that. So that's gonna, surprisingly, it works in Fabric. So it downloads all of that, our libraries. And
Yeah.
by the way, it takes a while because it's again, RStan is a wrapper or an
Yeah.
interface of the R
Yeah.
C++
Right.
library, right? So that's why takes a while to actually wrap, and like put all of that into Fabric.
Mm.
Yeah. Then
It's almost like a
from
software installation.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
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 So actually in the future we might be looking at things like presetting up our stand in the Spark settings. So because you
Mm.
can also do that.
Ah,
Um,
okay. Interesting.
yeah.
Yep.
Then here is just a simple defining the model. Just the likelihood of the Y is basically like the likelihood of the observation being true, really using
Right.
standard deviation. Okay. Here, save the model to a stand file. What happens here is you save that, in Spark, and then okay, this is just generate sample data, and put that into a data list. So there you go. So this is basically the model fitting. Okay, so that now you wanna use the stand model, try that against the list, and
Yep.
perform 1,000 iterations and chains. I see. And then from there, you summarize that and print that into a graph. Okay, so this is
Right.
like all the experiments running simultaneously, right? All the iterations
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
testing the RStan model, right?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. And then from here, you just plot the result using
Yeah.
ggplot too. I see. Yeah, yeah. And then there's a mean distribution, right?
So you've got such a niche kind of use case there.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably common in a lot of university, like when they run research, there's tend to be a lot of legacy stuff. Like, if you look at previous research papers, they did something in Stan, and now you don't want to reinstall
Yeah,
Stan,
yeah,
and you kind of
exactly.
needs to replicate or some of the experiments that they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
And
will.
yeah, and yeah, that's a good point. And I believe there's also a Python library of that one, but then the Python library doesn't include the actual C++ library. So I think that was the one of the blocker when I talked
Right.
to the team. Like, yeah, I mean, it's not just about using Python on or R. It's just that RStan has the library, so it's not just a wrapper or interface. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Interesting. And yeah, also to point out, I think while we're on the topic of R, so R, the main difference between R and Python is actually R is a functional programming language.
Yeah.
And there are certain benefits, like, readability, for example. Sometimes I actually find it like R to be quite easy because everything is
Yeah.
I do something or this code does something and
Yeah.
this
Very
line of code
objective,
is
right?
always
Yeah.
doing something.
It's very
Um,
objective. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So whereas, Python code, sometimes you get
Yeah,
class
Python
and
is like
yeah,
start something, let's do something, and then do more until you're finished, right? And from here, what that means really is that because it's Fabric, you can use all the Fabric goodness from the left side, meaning using shortcuts, mirrors, data flows,
yeah,
pipelines, notebooks, blah, blah, blah. And on the right side as well, meaning you wanna put this to Power BI, do you wanna, send a Teams message using Data Activator,
yeah,
and so on and so forth, right? So
yeah.
that's really what Fabric enables you, right? It gives you that left continuity and the right continuity side of things.
Yeah, so lots of options. It can be a good or a bad thing. The good thing is obviously you can use whatever flavor. The best side is when, like for example, I have within the team, people use both R and Python. Um, and so everyone who's newly onboarded will need to know both as well.
Yeah.
So there might be some costs associated with those kind of things. And sometimes it's harder to make decisions when you have too many options.
Yeah.
Like we explore in some of the previous videos as well. There's so many different
Mm,
ways to bring data into Fabric.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think, but
Yeah, you're
Fabric
right.
being
Yeah, because basically you're working on the same data, right? Why can't, like you can use R, I can use Python. We use the same lake house. You create your own notebook, I create my own notebook. We put them together in the same, like in a pipeline.
yeah,
Yeah, again, mix and match, right? Flexibility. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is good, interesting. Yeah, Fabric is just becoming this all and all like platform now. So it's definitely a very interesting space to continue to keep an eye out on. And yeah, thanks for sharing, MJ.
No worries. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you soon.
Yep. If you like and if you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. We're looking forward to see you again in the next video.